Well, we're back with another segment of the M Squared TechCast, and we have with us today our resident COVID-19 expert, Fred Brown, who's been working on these kinds of problems for 3 decades now, and so knows his way around a pandemic. Welcome, Fred.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay. You wanted to talk about a few things, and I certainly wanted to start with something just to see how much hope this actually offers us. The treatment with remdesivir and the vaccine being developed at Oxford. So let's talk about both of those for a second.
Yeah, those were exciting. So I don't want to get everyone overly excited, but remdesivir was, I thought, one of our best chances. It's an already developed drug. We developed it for other diseases, and now it turns out that it's helpful for COVID. Now, we're just starting to get results. There have been 2 clinical studies that are underway. One is called SIMPLE, and that one's too simple. It's not going to tell us very much. The other one's called ACT, and that's being done by the National Institutes of Health. And that actually indicated that remdesivir is going to be, if we use it at the right time for extremely ill patients, so it's just for one category of patients, we can reduce the time that people spend in the hospital from 14 days to 10 days, which can really be helpful in an outbreak. If you're starting to run short of hospital beds, you can start releasing people earlier. It's not going to be something for everybody all the time, but it's a nice weapon in the arsenal, no doubt about it. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dr. Fauci was optimistic about it. Is he being too optimistic about it?
No, well, so it's early, right? What they do in these clinical trials is they conduct them, and they have what they call an interim review, and they have an independent body go in and take a look at what the results are saying so far. And the results were mixed. They weren't perfect. We've gone halfway through the trial, so we'll know the final results of the trial in a couple of months. And what they showed was there's no reduction in mortality, and that was disappointing because that was the primary, what they call the primary endpoint. That's what you really like to see, is reduction in mortality. We didn't see that, and so they backed off on that. We saw a little bit of it. The reduction of mortality rate was from 11% to 8%. The problem was what they call the p-value, or the power of the study, wasn't strong enough to detect a statistical difference. So statistically, we have no change in the mortality rate from remdesivir to placebo.
It's sort of like within a poll that's within the margin of error. Then, right?
You got it. That's a perfect way to describe the system. Absolutely, man. So they decided we're not going to go for that anymore. We're going to go for reduction in time. And of course, it's an injectable, so the injectable also, kind of limits where you're going to apply the drug. You're going to have to be in a hospital basically to have it done right. So, but the nice thing is it's cheap. It's available, it's there, and for some patients, it's going to make a difference. I think short term, the best thing to go after is what they call convalescent plasma. And that means they found someone who's sick, who was sick, got well, they took that person's blood, spun it down, and they found antibodies in it that help you if you're really sick, or if you're a healthcare worker, to have a prophylactic effect. So it covers, it kind of prevents you from getting so easily infected, and this thing has a heck of an infection rate. I don't need to tell you, it's everywhere. so though I think convalescent, if you're in the hospital and you got a choice, I'd go probably for the convalescent plasma on the first round, and then if you're getting really, really sick, then go for the remdesivir. If you're at a good teaching hospital, they may have access to it.
There was also a little study that came out of Henry Ford Health System about a steroid that showed some promise. What have you heard about that?
Yeah, the steroids can knock down basically your immune response. And so what happens is, if you over-respond to this in the lungs, it can really tear you apart. And so the steroids kind of calm things down a little bit and help in that regard. So yes, we expect to see those kind of results. Those are available. But they're just they're trying to reduce the immunological response. It's not going to, sadly, it may prevent you having what they call a cytokine storm. That's the hope is.
Now, this may be a naive question, but it's been nagging at me. The virus, it seemed like every other thing, its prime motive is to survive. And if it kills its host, doesn't that sort of defeat that prime motive? That's the part I don't understand.
You're absolutely right. That's right on. So the fatality, they call something called the CFR, the case fatality rate. What you're looking for there is how often does your host die, and the virus also die with you. And it turns out that things like the flu have one of about 0.1% case fatality rate. So that there you know it's going to be on for a long time. You know, you're not killing anybody, and you're getting people infected enough to be sick. That's disappointing, but it's at least not going to be. Well, it's still deadly for people who are older, have more complicating conditions, and in some cases let the flu run away. But sadly, the flu does kill quite a few people, even at 0.1%. This we think has a CFR, a case fatality rate, of between probably. So the lowest numbers I've seen is 0.3, so that's already 3 times higher than flu, up to as much as, well, originally we thought it had something around the 1.5 to 2 level. And that was really scary because that's a high, you know, if you start multiplying that by millions, you're getting a lot of deaths.
Yeah, that's 7 million dead Americans if it's 2%. Right? So,
yes,
yeah.
that really gets scary, right? But it isn't. We don't think now it's that high. So we're backing off a little bit. Most people think it's probably in the 0.5 to 1% range, which is still, you know, still 50% to twice as bad as the influenza virus. The really bad ones are things like MERS and SARS, which these is related to. Those had death rates of, you know, kind of 3 to 5. And then your host did die off too quick, and they did die out. But this one's sort of right in that range where it's killing a lot more than we like to see, but not too many that it dies out itself. So it's a really difficult one this time. We're sort of caught.
So what about the Oxford vaccine? What have you heard about that?
The Oxford vaccine, yes, Sir John Bell. Yes, Sir John is a great guy, and he runs Oxford Vaccine Group, and they have a vaccine that they've done a lot of safety tests on already. They've gone through 4 animal models, which is great. They're now into human clinical trials. I've seen some of the ways they're studying this. It looks very efficient. They think they can get some answers for us, whether or not. So the first question is it safe? So they've looked at animal models to judge that, and they've also looked at animal models to judge whether you have an immune response. Luckily, in both cases, even in monkeys, which are sort of the gold standard for animal models in the space, they're getting good results. So now they've injected people. That joins a list of 6 other companies that have started to kind of test what they call phase 1, where they have healthy human volunteers. And then if it finds out if he's safe, and we're pretty sure he's going to be reasonably safe initially, to at least test this, then we go to efficacy trials. And what you do there is you inject a large population, say 1,000 people, with a placebo, and you inject another 1,000 people with what you think is going to be the properly dosed drug. Now you got to do some tests to understand dosing, and that's quite complicated. That's where most fail. Then you let people go out in the world, and they need to be in a place that has active infection, right? And then you compare the placebo group with the people who've been injected group after about 6 months, and you see whether there's been an effect. And so it takes a little bit of time, but he's well on his way.
All right, so 32 states are opening, I guess, this week or so.
It'll be 40, yeah.
40, So are we going to have the Sweden effect there, where it's just kind of see what happens and go for it, or what?
So Sweden is kind of a special case. Sadly, we've missed our Sweden window. What Sweden did was they clamped down really hard right up front. They knew it was coming. They protected all the older people who are going to have a high death rate. They're still decentralized in 20 states, but they sort of have a central coordinating group. And so they basically let things rip after they protected their people, but they did it early. And if you remember, I was talking a little bit about exponential growth. If you wait too long, all of a sudden the virus gets into the exponential growth phase, and it just takes off on you. And we're already in that stage. So there's a phase called containment, and we can try to do that to the virus if you're before the exponential growth. And then there's mitigation. That's after the disaster. Well, unfortunately, we sort of missed the containment window in February, March. That's when the United States had a chance to pull off the Sweden experiment, and we sort of missed it, you know. So unfortunately, now we're in a situation where we got to mitigate instead of contain. So having said all that, it's going to be now that we're opening up these states, it's going to be a challenge, because it's not like Sweden where they've suppressed it initially and then stopped sort of the overall growth. We're in a high growth phase of the virus, and so we're going to have I think we're going to have pockets of outbreaks, sadly, for a while here until we get things settled down.
How bad do you think it might get? I know you're going to speculate, but go ahead and speculate.
So I run some models, as you know, and I see a lot of other models, and our models are showing, sadly, that right now we're at a death rate of about 2,000 a week, and it's plateaued. So we're pretty steady right now at 2,000 a week. We'd like to see it come back down again, because then you're on a nice trajectory. Right now, it's just a flat line at 2,000 a week, pretty much. And if we open up the states like they're saying they're going to, without as much controls as we think they might need, we think it's going to, and you'll see the effect in about 3 weeks, doubling. So about 4,000 a week, sadly, in about 3 to 5 weeks.
And then you think the states are going to rethink opening and maybe scale it back, or what?
Well, there are two things that could happen. One is that we could learn a lot more about the virus and get smarter about it, and decide how we want to open, what we want to open, what's safe, what's not so safe. And we'll get good data sets on that and sort of understand the general. Well, we need to understand three things. The first thing that is, how prevalent is the virus, and how active is it? Second thing is, how at risk as me as a person, and the third thing is, what am I doing as an activity? And you kind of put those three things together, and you kind of say that if you can, reduce the activities that are really causing a lot of viral spread, if you can push down the virus in terms of activity, and you can kind of protect the guys who are at higher risk, then you're going to reduce that. Then you're going to reduce the death rate a lot. But if we just say, everything's open, go for it, and everyone can do whatever they want, then everyone's going to have to make an individual decision, and we don't have. Sadly, individuals don't have as much data as to kind of look every time at the big computer and figure out where the model is and figure things out. It's going to take some time and trial and error, and by that time it could be challenging. The other big question is whether we're going to be able to do tracing or not. If we can do tracing, we can get ahead of things, and that's going to take some time, but eventually that'll be our most effective way of actually stopping the viral spread, is the tracing after you get diagnosed.
Now, Michigan has the lockdown going until May 15th. I suspect with our governor that may be extended, but I'm not sure. What would you recommend the governor to do?
Well, I'm not consulting to Governor Whitmore. She has a good team already in place. I do consult to 17 other governments, and my suggestion is to learn a lot from what other people are doing. So Georgia, South Carolina, Oklahoma, you want to watch those guys and see what's happening, to see what happens, right? And so
the Florida beaches, I saw some news reporting from there today.
Okay.
Clearwater's open again, but people actually seem to be being pretty sensible about it. There were family groups, but they were a good 20 feet apart.
If you do that, that's absolutely great. You keep socially distant, you be responsible, you keep some masks on when you're close in, and so then I think you can do quite a bit. But if you don't, like a friend of mine was riding a bicycle the other day, actually yesterday, it was a beautiful day, went to Dairy Queen, and he said basically it was chaos. People were all really close together waiting in line for the ice cream, and they weren't socially distancing. They had social distance markers on the ground. All the kids were all over the place.
I don't want to be the first person to die for a flurry. I just
That's right. You don't want to be that guy.
No.
Although I could be. I love those things.
Yeah, you don't get to look like I do without liking a few of those things too.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, right.
So that's the kind of behavior that really is unfortunate, because that's sort of a wasted opportunity. If we had done things right, we could have done other things as well. But now we've got the Dairy Queen blow up, and we got to kind of crush down on some other things that maybe we would have liked to do.
I watched your hour and 45-minute show on IT and the D. Very thorough, very scary.
Yeah, I would recommend that. If Dave, I know that's up online someplace, right? Isn't it?
It's on the IT and the D Facebook page. It's out on the IT and the D YouTube channel and the Podcast Detroit YouTube channel.
Okay. There are a lot worse ways to spend an hour and 45 minutes. There's a lot of bad Netflix movies out there. Just skip one of those and watch this instead.
Remember how much time you wasted on Tiger King, and then go ahead and watch that.
I gave up about 3 episodes into that. I was just like, why am I watching this? I don't like any of these people.
Well, and with 10,000 people, last I looked, Fred, 10,000 people had actually looked at that video. So,
oh, wow. That's great.
yeah.
I'm
And
happy
Dave
to
said
hear.
they were all drinking heavily after watching it. So,
Oh, I know. I think I mentioned to him right at the end of the show that I must have had about 24 messages that came in from people that were like, dude, I always drink when I'm listening and watching you guys, but like with this guy on, I'm getting hammered. What the hell?
so the liquor folks want to thank you for that, Fred. So,
this episode brought to you by the American Distillers Council.
yes. Okay.
Hey, we need those guys. They're making some great disinfectant now. You know, they've moved
That's
over.
true.
So they're doing great stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're probably getting close to 13 minutes here. We had a little late start. So any kind of parting thoughts you want to leave everyone with so they'll be scared to death until next week? Or
Well, if you are scared to death, there are a couple of things you might want to think about in terms of your last will and testament. I know it's a little bit but listen to Susie Orman and get a revocable trust, get a power of attorney, and get power of finance out there, so that if you do end up, sadly, with a situation that you can't manage your own affairs anymore, you've got something in place that allows people to help you. Because otherwise, you get all tied up in the courts and take a long time and cost a lot of money, and by that time, it's all over. So it is something you probably want to just have in line. The other thing is, I'd recommend is write down who you're contacting a lot, because if you come down with the illness, or if your friends come down with the illness, you can at least then decide whether you are at risk or not. And I think that'll be important, starting to write down some of your contacts and who you've had contact with and where you've been. I think as things open up, it'll be good to have a record for yourself, just so you can put yourself at ease a little bit, to say, that Walgreens episode, or that person I thought I contacted didn't come down with it, so everything's good. So that'll give you some peace of mind as we start opening up, and you realize that things are going to start creeping back up again in terms of the case rates.
I've been going to Myers to do my shopping because it's a big store with big aisles. And I go, as soon as they open first thing in the morning after the cleaning crew has been in.
That's it.
And it's like really not very many people in there, and everyone's giving everybody a wide berth, so.
That's perfect. There are ways of kind of deciding whether or not a store is active. And are they kind of counting out how many people are allowed in at a time? Are they keeping social distancing up? Do they have long lines for people getting close? Do they wipe down things after things have been used? Are they washing their hands pretty regularly? Employees really should wash their hands about every 30 minutes, believe it or not, in order to keep their own infection levels down. Are people wearing masks? Are masks being afforded or given out as you get into the store? Those are really good practices. And I would prefer, if I were of our age, then I think it's wise to kind of watch for that good practice being done before you go into the store.
Sounds good.
Additional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.